Hey guys, so here we are in another episode of Las Sisters. So today we are talking about land. Why? Because I do have a lot of investors that either they want to buy a property for themselves, and buyers in general, that are looking for land to buy properties to build for themselves as a personal home. And also they are investors that wants to buy properties for them to build multifamily. But in this episode, I will only talk about buying property for a single family, which if you're building more than one house in a lot, you can still replicate it. But stay tuned for our other videos in which we're going to show a little bit about the multifamily. So let's get started. Please keep in mind the mistakes that a lot of people do when they are buying a land. If you're planning to buy a land to build, think about it twice. There is a lot of components. And if you do not have the right team, it is a project that I do not recommend for you to tackle on your own. But if you do decide to tackle it on your own, I will give you all the ins and outs that you need. So first, when you're buying a land, even if you're not thinking of being an investor or buying several properties and growing your portfolio, you should always have an investor mindset. Why? Research shows that you only live in a house for 7 years. And this is because either your needs change, maybe your family size grew, in-laws move in, you have more kids, or it could also be that you want to downsize or you have to move because of job opportunities, family, sickness, or anything in between. So keep that in mind. Even though if you're not an investor, you still want to have that investor mentality. Why? Because your house has to give you a return if you decide to move or sell, right? So you have to think about a property where people want to rent or people want to buy. So keep in mind things like schools nearby, something not too close to a school, but still accessible. Things accessible to restaurants, shopping centers. So those are things that are very important. Besides the location that you have to consider in order for you to get the maximum, you want something that can sell also very quickly and you get the maximum return for your investment. The second thing that you have to keep in mind is what you need. You need to start with a good realtor. The realtor should point you to that location. It's okay if you're in a place that is secluded as long as the place is accessible, but you also have to know the requirements for the purchase. You don't need to know everything, you just have to have the right team. There are things that your realtor would take into consideration. The most important thing is the soil. The soil has to be suitable in order for you to buy. For example, in this land that we are right now, if you see the soil, it looks like a red soil. But the city will come and they will do a soil test, meaning they would put a stick into it to make sure that when they put a septic tank on the floor, the septic tank doesn't go anywhere. And if you are in North Carolina, you will only use a septic tank if you are in an area where it's called outside of the city limits. What does that mean? That means that the city does not maintain the area. The county does. The advantages of being outside of the city limits is that you don't pay taxes to the city where you are located. You only pay taxes to the county. When it comes to taxes in North Carolina, in every state varies, so you have to find that out. But in North Carolina, when you pay taxes, normally in some cities you pay a 0.70 cents, meaning that for every $100 you pay 70 cents, and then you pay the taxes to the county, which is another like 40 cents. So if you're in an area like Wake County, you might be paying, depending, that changes every certain amount of years, you might be paying anywhere from 1.25 to 1.35% in taxes because we did have an increase. But if you are outside of the city limits, you might only pay 0.85 cents. So that is very important because the bigger the house is, the more you have to pay in taxes. Something else that you want to keep in mind is the need of the septic tank. In the Wake County, because you don't have any connections to the city, you need a septic. A septic tank could cost anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000 in our area in order for you to install. But the soil has to be suitable. If the soil is not suitable for a septic tank, then you are looking at tremendous expense, anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000. It is not that you cannot install it, it's that you have to spend a lot of money to get it prepared so that it can be suitable for a septic tank. So your realtor might want to consider doing a soil test if you are looking to build multifamily, or if you're looking to subdivide it to build separate houses to sell, then you definitely have to do a soil test. And that is just something in which the specialists come, they test the soil, and they give you a map of exactly where you're able to put the septic tank. And that is very important because there are certain requirements depending on the county. The septic tank has to be placed a certain amount of feet away from the house. And then you have the lines from the septic tank that also has to be a certain amount of feet in a certain position. They will negotiate a longer period of time. When you talk about buying a house, normally in that process, it could be anything from 10 days to 45 days to buy a house. If you're doing it with a loan, it could be 30 to 45 days. But if you're building a cash, it could be 10 days. If you're building it with purchasing a lot and it is outside of the city limits, you want to take something more like 60 days to 90 days. If you're about building a single family home, if you're subdividing in the Wake County or something like Johnston County in North Carolina, then you have to consider that you have to do a contract for a period of 8 months to a year. And if you're building multifamily, it could be as long as a year and a half or so. So your realtor needs to know. Now, not every realtor can help you buy in land. The realtor has to be an expert in their area. There are realtors that they have the information for a single family, and there are realtors that have information about commercial or multifamily. Not all realtors have the same information. It's not like a one-size-fits-all situation. So keep that in mind. Other things besides the negotiation that your realtor has to know is the land value. In our county or in our area, it's a little bit hard to define the land value. The land value varies depending on the location and if the land is suitable or not. But if you spend a lot of money on land, then sometimes it wouldn't even make sense to build because you have to consider the price to build it and the price of land. Also, the realtor might guide you to some lenders that can lend you the money to buy. But let's talk about lending for 1 minute. That will be my point number 3. When you're talking about lending, buying a house, normally in Wake County, the easiest way to do it, or in North Carolina, in the Triangle area, the easiest ways to do it is to purchase the land cash and then build. But of course, if you're talking about a big purchase, I give like 2-3 acres, 4 acres of land, or buying a land in a very expensive area where a quarter of an acre might be $150,000 or $200,000 home, then you might have to get a loan. You could go to a local lender, or you have to look for a lender that specializes in land because not every lender will lend you for the land. Now, I am going to give you this hint. A lot of the lenders might say that they cannot lend you money unless you have to build. And a lot of them have requirements that you have to build within a year. However, they are very flexible. Even though a lot of lenders say that, if you buy a land and you cannot build within a year, they will leave you only with the loan for the land. Hey, watch out though, it is not the realtor's responsibility to get you a loan. They could point you in the right direction, but a loan is something very personal where the finances are involved in your personal information. Therefore, that's something that you will have to shop around. You also have to keep in mind if it's worth to build. If you do not have the right team to build, then it might be something that I might not recommend. Building, you could save anymore from $50,000 to $100,000 if you're expert and you know what you're doing. However, you might end up paying the same thing as buying it in an existing home if you don't have the experience or the knowledge. If you're doing it with a loan, the lender is going to require for you to have a builder or a contractor. In our area, in the Triangle area, they do require for you to have a contractor and a builder depending on the loan. If you're building like an $800,000, $1 million home, it might make sense for you to do it, to buy a land and build a house. But if that is not the case, if you're doing $300,000, $400,000 home, you have to keep in mind, because as you will see in our other videos, it is a lot of work. And we will definitely take the time to show you the entire process of building a house. So stay tuned for more. Do not forget to hit the bell so that you do not miss any of our videos, recordings, or channel, and subscribe.